Everyone knows that no one is immune from fraud.
So what is one client in a mass tort case possibly worth?
A tier one case is going to be worth over $1 million. Now, if you have a situation like we'll use Roundup, for example, right? And it's found that there's this connection to a chemical that's in the product Roundup and this type of blood cancer. And you find that there's a lot of people that use the same product, have the same injury. It would essentially be impossible, right, in order for all of them to get their day in court. And so they group together these cases, right, into these mass torts where they do have the same injury that is alleged to be from the same product, and then they can litigate the whole.
Well, there is another level of risk.
Absolutely.
And that's...
So there's like three ways that we see this, right? So one, we see what we just call claimant fraud. And these are people that either on their own accord or they found a Reddit group, a Facebook page, somebody that says, hey, give me $50. I'll teach you how to get paid on a Boy Scouts of America case. Second level of fraud would be...
Well, hello and welcome to another guest interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and I am going to be going down a path that I don't know if we've gone down before on the Profit with Law podcast. And I'm excited to talk about this because it's an area that we're helping some of our clients with. And I think that it's something we probably should make you aware of. So if you have heard of mass torts, if you are involved in mass torts, or if you're thinking that maybe that's something you should get involved in, then this is probably a conversation for you. Now, real quick before we kick it off, mass tort is one of the strategies that we use in our tax advisory side of our business to help clients with eliminating their tax bill. So if you are earning $300,000 or more in revenue, in income, wrong word, not revenue, in income. It's for your households. This could be your investments, could be your spouse's income, 300,000 or more in income, or you're paying 50,000 more in federal taxes, then we probably can help you eliminate as much as 80 to 100% of your tax bill. So if that's you, we probably should have a conversation. And you can book a call at dreambuilderfinancial.com/tax call. dreambuilderfinancial.com/tax call. Never promoted that on the podcast before, but I think this is a good time to do that because this is one of the strategies that we use with our clients. So definitely something that we should be paying attention to, especially when we start earning some boatloads of money because you've been listening to this podcast and implementing everything that you're hearing. So Kate Hoffman is our guest today. She's the founder of Smart Reviews and is a respected authority and innovator at the forefront of ensuring validity and viability in law firm dockets. With a background cutting across healthcare, defense, and plaintiff litigation, she brings a rare and comprehensive perspective on the challenges law firms face today. Over the past decade, she's built Smart Reviews into a trusted leader in the industry, ensuring the integrity of every case that moves forward. Her mission is to elevate standards, combat fraud, and build lasting transparency across the mass tort ecosystem. Kate, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited for it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure and appreciate you taking the time. So, Kate, I always start with a really easy tee-up question for you. Tell us a little bit about your backstory. How in the world did you get started with this? And what are you excited about regarding this area of the world that you play in? Let our listeners get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, of course. So I initially started out in healthcare. And found my way, thought I would go back to school to be a lawyer. Luckily, did not. No offense to all the lawyers out there. Love you all. Wouldn't want to do it myself. But found this niche of working as a legal nurse, medical paralegal. And I started off working for a defense firm, a large pharmaceutical defense firm. So they did mass tort cases there, defended them. I learned a lot about the process, about, how defense approaches these cases. And having sort of that healthcare background, I was reviewing these cases from a medical standpoint to look at mitigating the damages, right? And understandable on both sides of the piece, but I would also find myself, feeling for these claimants. And so I decided to try my hand to go onto the plaintiff side And so worked a few years in-house for a plaintiff's firm, which was amazing. The Lawrence firm in Kentucky, incredible plaintiff's law firm. And I saw, though, even the best firms on either side really struggled to be able, if you're doing mass torts, right, it's hard to be able to give the time and attention to every claimant that you want to. I mean, it's pretty much impossible. And a lot of certain like tasks get outsourced, but still that piece that's making sure, especially in a mass tort case, that a claimant feels like they're important. I felt like it was a very hard thing for a firm to do. So in 2012, I decided to, on a wing and a prayer and $4, uh, and as a divorced mom of three young kids, decided to start, try my hand at starting my own company, doing case workup. So helping firms that are doing mass torts do fact sheets and other, documents that are involved in working up these cases. And then part of our process was that we also did something very simple, which we still do to this day, which is a 30-day touch point for every claimant, whether it's been a litigation that, you know, comes in and settles really quickly, like we've seen, or ones that are, bear huggers and the talcs of the world where these claimants have been in it forever. Every 30 days we reach out and touch base and check on them and see how they're doing, if anything's changed, and just reminding them that they are the most important thing in their lawsuit. So started doing that, oh Lord, almost 15 years ago, and got very lucky, found a lot of great firms that we've partnered with, and sort of just worked behind the scenes for a really long time on these cases uh, until this fraud system, issue that we're going to talk about more sort of came up. But that's been my sort of process to getting here. So
Awesome. What an amazing story. And as somebody advising business owners on the best way to start a business, I do not recommend starting a business with $4 in your pocket.
mm,
But definitely the hardest way to go. But kudos to
it
you for
was.
building a business, still being here today, which means that you've got to be successful to some extent, right? Most businesses fail within the first 5 years, and many of them within the first couple. So, yeah,
Yeah, we have over 200 people at my company now,
that's
and
incredible.
started with one and three small children. They helped me. So
Yeah, that's incredible. And think about the fact that there's 200 people whose livelihoods depend on you, and it's just a wonderful thing. So, really, really awesome and happy for you, and especially as a single mom. I'm not a single mom, but I was at some point a single dad, and the kid's mom was not in their life. So, I know what it's like, and
wow.
so. Um, Really, really tough journey that you were on, and I'm sure that you've set an amazing example for your kids on what's possible.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna jump into mass torts, but before I do
Yeah.
that, I mean, I just don't want to make the assumption that everyone listening to this podcast even knows what that is, even though they're an attorney, right? Like, I'm sure that they know what a tort is, right? Like, we don't have to go into that, but give me a little bit of an insight into the world of mass torts, right? How does it work? How are, where are the clients found? Who pays for that? Where's the opportunity for people to get involved in mass torts, even if that's not the main business that they have? Just give me the broad strokes, because I think setting that up is going to be really important for people to understand the next step of our conversation, which is really the crux of the matter, which is the fraud and abuse.
Yeah, absolutely. So um, mass torts, right? So if we have one claimant that's injured, right? One plaintiff in a case, they have their own lawsuit. It goes through all the steps of, the discovery process, depositions, all of these things for that one person based on their one case, right? One guy falls off a ladder at an Exxon facility or whatever it is and goes through all those steps. Now, if you have a situation like we'll use Roundup, for example, because a lot of people are familiar with that, right? And it's found that there's this connection to a product that's in Roundup, right? A chemical that's in the product Roundup, and this type of blood cancer, right? And you find that there's a lot of people that use the same product, have the same injury, each one of them individually having to go through all of those steps, it would essentially be impossible, right? in order for all of them to get their day in court, for them to, be able to see that case through. I mean, all the courts, would be tied up forever. You'd have to get in line for your trial in 107 years. And so they group together these cases, right, into these mass torts where they do have the same injury that is alleged to be from the same product. And then they can litigate the whole, right? So you're hiring experts that can opine on the whole case. You can choose plaintiffs. They say bellwether picks. Defense and plaintiffs get an opportunity to sort of pick cases they feel are a best representation of the docket. And so you can go to trial. You can do sort of a global limited discovery, right? Like a fact sheet. And then you can do a trial that will have an impact sort of on the whole. And so it's, the way for every claimant to get represented without obviously all the steps that would be necessary to do them individually. And these have been, very successful. There's been a lot of very successful litigations. If you're looking at this from the investor standpoint, right? So you can buy mass tort cases. So say a law firm, we'll start with saying it's a law firm, right? So you're a law firm and you say, oh, wow, we just did really well in this case. We've got $1 million, right? And you can go into the mass tort space and see which mass torts are out there, obviously do your research, see how long you think they're going to go on for, how good the facts are, how bad the facts are, for defense. And if you want to buy these cases, there are marketing companies, right, that are running ads. We've all seen them, right? Facebook and still TV and radios out there, but, mostly social media and, internet ads are being run. And people see those ads, click it. If they qualify, they get sent to an intake center, they complete an intake, and then the case is sold to the law firm. So on a lot of these torts that are going on right now, you're looking at maybe $5,000, right, to purchase one of these leads, right? Not a case, because they can't guarantee anything's going to resolve in an outcome, but you could purchase a lead for, say, $5,000. And that case, right, may end up getting $100,000, $500,000 if you get $1 million, right? But you're going to buy that case, and if there's any resolution, more likely than not, right, you're going to get a return on that investment. And so you can buy a mass amount of these cases and get a return on the investment of each one when that case settles. So did I explain it well?
Yeah, so there are some question marks that and I'm cheating because I know how this works, right? But I'm trying to
Yes.
put myself
No,
in the
help me
listener's
out. I'll
shoes,
take the
right?
assist.
So who actually does the litigation of the case? Is it the
So,
firm that's buying the case?
yes. So, uh, it's a trick question. No, I'm just kidding. So sometimes, yes. So there's in any tort, we'll say like this is a litigating firm or this is a referral firm. Um, and so the litigating firm obviously is the firm that's going to be litigating the cases. Sometimes they're buying their own. Sometimes they don't buy any of their own, and they're only taking referrals from referral firms who are buying those cases and then referring them to the litigating firm. Now, typically, a litigating firm is going to have some amount of their own, and then they will get some percent of the return on the cases that are referred to them for doing the work on them, right? And they're purchased by another firm. And then now, we have this new piece that's sort of entered this system, which are these ABS companies that are not law firms, but they are allowed to. And I think it's just Arizona that's still allowing it. But there
I
are
think there's 3 states now, but
it was Arizona, California still as of last year, but I think California is not letting many. You can apply, but I've not seen many get through recently. Um, but if there's another one, let me know. But those are the ones
well,
I'm
there
aware
are,
of.
and I can't state which ones they are because I forget right now off the top of my head, but there are 3 states that allow non-law firms, not
Correct.
non-lawyers, to own a law firm, and those
Yes.
essentially are probably the same states that you can do this with. But
Yes. So that's what it is. So that's what they call these ABS firms. So they're non-lawyer owned, law firms essentially, and they are not litigating anything. They are buying these leads and then referring the cases to a litigating firm. And that's their whole, purpose essentially. And they've been very successful. A lot of those companies have done very well by never having to see a day in court. And so it's one of those pieces, right? That is purchasing the cases. So it's not always the case, the firm litigating it that's buying them.
So can you just give me an example of the math on this, right? So what is one client in a mass tort case possibly worth? Like I know it's
So
all over the map, but give me the range of
yeah,
like, there is a minimum that firms wouldn't mess with beyond that, right? So,
yeah, yes, unless you're getting cases for, $100, and then it sort of falls more in the return value of like class action type more
mhm.
cases. But typically on these cases, you're talking an average of somewhere between, 50,000 and $250,000 is a typical, payout on these mass tort cases. Then you always are going to have some degree of, we always say like tier one cases, right? So a tier one case is almost always in any tort going to be worth over $1 million. And so you may have a docket that's, averages $108,000 a case with 10% tier one cases, which are all going to be over $1 million.
So
Sort
let's
of
just
typically we
clarify.
see.
Tier one cases is basically the first round after so somebody wins in court, a single plaintiff wins, right? That opens the door for the opportunity for the tort. It's the first round of claimants that are coming together against that for that particular case. They're going to get the highest payout, and then it gets diluted over time, correct?
So, I mean, there is a factor of that often, but no. So, in like the actual tiering structure, so say a Depo Provera case, which is birth control that causes a type of benign brain tumor, um, you're going to have people that may have a very small brain tumor where they haven't had to have it surgically removed. Maybe it causes a little bit of blurred vision or headaches. And then you're also on the same tort, right? Going to have a claimant that's had 9 brain surgeries, undergone 3 rounds of radiation, is now blind fully in one eye, can't use their left arm, can't drive a car, has impaired speech, and they're in the same case. They can't get the same payout, right? So the cases are tiered, and that's something else my company does at the start of these torts is we look at the damages and try to identify how are they separated, right? So like in Depo, we say, a tier one case is someone with permanent deficits, and a tier two case has had multiple surgeries and radiation, and a tier three case has had one surgery and radiation. And so we tier them in that way that you can kind of get an idea, especially if you're an investor. I think it's something that's very, helpful. You're not just it's not really an unknown. Is what does my docket look like overall value wise? Because it's not just about quantity, right? It's about quality. And it's terrible to say that because the more injured claimants obviously are going to get a higher payout because that's what they deserve, right? But
Right.
equally,
But
there's going to be a higher return
to
on
an investor,
those.
they're the higher quality case.
Right.
Okay. Understood. So, so let's just summarize this. So, a law firm owner has some money to spend. They're not a litigating firm. They're going to be a referral firm. They're going to invest some marketing dollars into mass torts. That's going to turn into cases
Mm-hmm.
that are now being sent to a litigation firm. They're going to share the payout with the litigation firm, obviously. But when and if that case pays out, it's their case. They're gonna get the attorney fees minus the fees going to the litigation attorney, or vice versa. The litigation firm gets the fees and they get the referral fee.
Right.
Um, and that's where the opportunity is. That's the investment. And I don't know if you're familiar with like what is the typical returns that somebody gets on a dollar invested in mass torts if they, if we take fraud out of the picture,
Yeah.
and they're investing in with a good partner and good cases.
Yeah.
Do you know
So
that?
over the last 5 years, so we like to store all this data and look at it. It's of course it's going to be a broad thing, but depending on which tort, and that's also something we can say, hey, we've started seeing cases settle on this, or this case is very similar to previous case, so you probably can anticipate. But it's anywhere from 2x to 10x that we've seen over the last 5 years in these settlements that have paid out on that original investment amount that people were purchasing the cases for. So it's like if your case wins, you're probably going to double your money, but you have a chance that you could get some of these are 10x what these
Right.
cases were. And the thing is too, it's getting in early, right? So if you get in early on a case before really anyone knows if it's going to pan out, this is where it's like sometimes when I first started learning this part of mass torts, I'm like, this is just like and it's like adult and gambling. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Oh
a
yeah.
little bit. So it's like
High level gambling, right?
right. So there are people that before there was much done on Depot and it was kind of just a rumor that were getting cases for two, three, $400, right? A lead on
Hmm.
Depot. Well, now if you could get one for under 10 grand, that'd be shocking because
Right.
it's now at a space in litigation where it's like, oh, these are going to pay and they're probably going to pay well. Um, and in
You've
the
also
beginning,
used
it's a
you've
full
also
gamble.
used a certain segment of the population, right? Like there's a lot of people who've
Correct.
already been litigated.
Yes, there's less fish in the pond, right? Which is
I imagine
something.
that they're not giving the same medication anymore and creating more of this problem, right?
So, well, and a lot of these, like with Depo, a lot of these people took this medication 20 years ago, and this type of brain tumor has a long latency period. Sort of the same thing we see like with Roundup, right? And other cases where you used the product 20 years ago. So there are new ones showing up every day, but it's not a common issue, right?
Right.
And so it's not a lot. There were a lot at the beginning, and the amount that's come out of the pond is nowhere near what's continuing to go into the pond. So yeah, I mean, it's just we saw that and we did Roundup Part One, and then when this second round of Roundup came out recently here in the last year or two, everyone was confused that they were investing the same amount of money but couldn't get nearly as many cases, right? Well, it's because it's the same injury and they all signed up on the first Roundup lawsuit. So yeah, to your point, it's just there's way fewer claimants as the tort moves along. You get in early when you have no idea that you might get no return on investment, right? You can get them cheap and there's a ton out there because no one's buying them yet, right? And then once it moves along, it just drives up the price because the availability goes down.
Yeah. So okay. All right. So I think we have enough here. I want to actually deviate for a second. I'm going to go outside of your area of expertise and into my area of expertise, and I'm just going
Love
to
it.
kind of finish making the case for why this is something that law firm owners who have some money to invest should think about. So,
Absolutely.
as a tax strategy, what ends up happening is let's say you have an extra $1 million in income this year. So you had a great year, you've got $1 million in income. Guess what's going to happen? Let's assume that you live in where I am in New York State. Okay, this works in anywhere, but in a high tax state, it's even better. So you live in New York, you're at the top of the tax bracket, right? So you're paying 37% of federal taxes, you're paying an extra 2.3% in excess Medicare taxes, and you're paying between 8 and 10% to New York State. So you're talking about paying an excess of 50% of that $1 million in taxes.
Right.
So 500,000 plus is poof, gone, right? Instead, you can take $1 million, invest it in mass torts. Now, because of what we just explained, you understand how this whole thing works. You're putting up marketing dollars. When you invest marketing dollars, it's a regular business expense. You get to write it off immediately. So you write $1 million check to spend on advertising. And as long as it's going to be spent within the next 12 months, there's no problem with paying it in December and getting the credit in that tax year. And now you've got $1 million write-off and that profit's gone. It's not taxed anymore. So essentially what's happening is that you have a way to invest. Maybe it's a higher risk investment than the stock market, but the rate of return between 2 and 10x. So somewhere in the next 5 years, that $1 million is going to turn into 2 to 10 million, right? And the government is taking 50% of the risk with you because you're really only putting up $500,000 out of pocket because your million, half of it, 500,000 would have gone to taxes, and you only have 500,000 left for you. So now you got to take, invest. Now, you might not want to invest the whole million. Maybe you have some stuff to do with the other dollars. And we have other tax strategies that are more leveraged than mass torts. So mass torts is not a leverage strategy. It's dollar for dollar. So every dollar you put in is a dollar that comes in as an expense. We have other strategies where you're investing in something that is going to give you more of a write-off. And we would couple these strategies together. So I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but I think that if this is something that you want to learn more about, definitely get on the phone with one of our reps to understand how to find out more about it. But the other tax strategies don't have this kind of return, which is why I like marrying the two together. I like taking the mass torts for a part of it and then taking these other strategies for the other part of it. We almost eliminate your tax bill completely. You still get to keep your 500,000, but the government's still taking that ride with you. So that's why and this is not for somebody who's not making money, right? Like you've got to be making money. You got to have the extra cash because you're deploying cash, right? That's what you're doing. But ultimately, it's an incredible investment. But with an incredible investment comes risk. And some of the risk is just the risk of, hey, not every case is gonna pay out, right? Like you got to have the right tort, you got to have the right group that's litigating it, you got to be in the right bucket. But then there's another level of risk, and that's fraud, which up until meeting Kate about 45 minutes ago, I had no idea about. So, Kate, tell us more about what is going on Reddit, what is going on in the, in with prepaid phones and people calling. Just give us the broad strokes of what's going on in the fraud department so we can understand the risk. And then the last step, we'll circle back on how smart reviews helps investors to mitigate that.
Absolutely. So, one, I just want to say that I had my light bulb moment right here, understanding why so much money is pushed into this space. And I think you just explained it to me. I think now I know because it is a risky investment. And so that is one piece of it that I've always wondered, like, there has to be an incentive in investing in this way. And now it's like, I mean, I should be investing in this way. Got to
Yeah,
diversify. Uh, but
absolutely.
but
Open a
yeah,
law
no, that's
firm in
sort of a light
Arizona.
bulb moment. So yeah, so I so the fraud aspect of this. So ultimately, like we said, you know hear an ad. Did you take this medicine and now you have this injury? Call this number. Um, Someone calls in, they fill it out. If they meet the firm's criteria, it's sold to the firm. There's nothing proving that, right? And so if you're a company doing this not legitimately, you're making 5 grand a pop. You could be just paying somebody $100, right? To be calling in, tell them exactly what to say. They meet the criteria, and you're selling those over to a law firm. It's always been an issue, right? But it wasn't a really big issue until Camp Lejeune occurred. And when we see these torts, when we see things like Camp Lejeune or Boy Scouts or some of these torts where it's essentially like we know them, it's almost like a money grab type situation. The money's there, who can get to it fast enough, right? It's sort of like we know this money is going to pay out. And so a lot of people at one time wanted to invest in Camp Lejeune, and so much money came into the space at once, like hundreds of millions of dollars of wanting to buy these cases, that there were not enough legitimate marketers out there selling it. And so we saw these people move into the space from other areas that would just throw up an ad, right? And it was working, and they're selling these leads, but no one was validating them. And it sort of, I mean, we've always had the fraud, but it sort of launched the magnitude of fraud that we started seeing. And for my company, we're helping the firms work up these cases. So we get hired to do 5,000 fact sheets, right? And so we noticed about 3 years ago, was it when it really kind of peaked, that we get hired to do 5,000 fact sheets, and we could only do a couple hundred of them because the rest weren't real. Sometimes they weren't even real people. I mean, they had lied about who they were or lied about having the injury, but they just were gone. poof, couldn't reach them, right? Numbers disconnected, the amount of non-working numbers going through the roof. And then we couldn't background check and find these people because they didn't exist. And so obviously for my company that we're surviving off of working up cases, I don't feel good. I'm not charging a client, that's hired me to do a fact sheet for the work I did to not be able to get a fact sheet done, right? And so we started noticing, how bad this was getting. And so what we started doing to the firms was saying, hey, right, we will look at your cases first and bucket them, right? So you give us the cases, pay us sort of a nominal amount to bucket them out. These ones are definitely good. These ones are definitely bad. Release those, right? And these ones are on the fence, probably worth working up to see, you tell us, kind of thing. And so we called that docket review. Well, when we started doing docket review, because of the amount of fraud that kind of come in at one time, we started seeing there were docket reviews we got hired to look at. This is no joke, 1,000 cases and 0 were good, right? And so the firm then is going to the guy that they bought the cases from and starting a war, right? And the guy they bought the cases from is like, well, I didn't know they were bad. You kept buying them. We had no idea, right? And so we realized that the time to identify if the leads that are coming in through an ad are good is immediately. And so we sort of moved out into this space where we can help the law firms and the marketers. And we charge a small, I don't mind saying, we charge a $200 fee on these, often $1,000 leads that once they've signed, they come to us. If it's a medical tort, we get a medical record to confirm their diagnosis. We run background checks on all the claimants. I know I skipped here where we're saying what we're doing, but I ran into it. I'm a rambler.
No,
So
it's all good. It makes total
works
sense.
together.
Yeah.
So,
So
oh, go ahead.
just to be clear on the I guess the fraud and what's happening.
Yeah.
So marketers, so the situation is and I'm just gonna take the referring attorney spot, right? So because most of our
Yes.
listeners are going to be in that role. So you're the referring attorney, you hire a marketer to spend this money to in turn get you cases. And either you're paying a certain amount per case or they're giving you a certain amount of minimum that they're going to get you the X amount of cases is typically the setup, right? So
Yeah.
either way, they're either giving you this case and it's counting towards the amount that you're supposed to get, or you're paying a dollar amount for this. It could be 1,000, could be $5,000, $6,000 for it, right? You even said, depot cases, you'd be surprised if you could find them for less than 10,000 a case. I mean, that's crazy when you think about I could be spending $10,000 on somebody who
Mm-hmm.
is trying to just have a money grab, and I'm not really sure exactly how that. I guess they're trying to have a money grab from the entire case. They're trying to just kind of slip
Yeah.
in as a valid case into a whole
Well, I
a
can
whole
explain that.
whole mass. Yeah, so go ahead.
So, yeah, so there's like 3 ways that we see this, right? So, one, we see what we just call claimant fraud. And these are people that either on their own accord or they found a Reddit group, a Facebook page, somebody that says, hey, and it's just some random person, right, is saying, hey, give me 20 bucks, give me 50 bucks. I'll teach you how to get paid on a Boy Scouts of America case, right? I'll teach you how to get paid, then say you were at Astro World when you weren't, right? And so that's just claimant driven. No one else is involved in that, but the actual claimant trying to, get paid, or they just say, hey, I took that med. I'm just going to lie and say I have the injury and see what happens. And no one else is involved with them, right? So we have that type of fraud, and they're just on a wing and a prayer, hoping that they can get through on their lies. Then we have a second level of fraud, which is much more. Second level of fraud would be you hire a marketer, right? And he's legitimate and he's doing everything by the book, but he realizes he can't get enough cases in time because everyone wants them quick, right? They want to get the cases as fast as possible. And they realize, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this. So they reach out to another marketer and they affiliate with someone else who's saying, hey, if anyone needs depot cases, I can get them by the boatload, right? And
Hmm.
they think, I don't know, but I got to fill this budget. So I'm going to trust this guy, right? And this guy is just selling fraudulent leads, right? And so they're getting people to sign up and they might not be real people. They may not answer the phone, whatever it is, but they're driving it to this marketer that's facing the firm. and bad ones are getting in that way through these affiliate marketers. Then there's the worst part of it, which has grown over the last few years, which is true coached, sophisticated fraud. And you have these companies we have spoken to. Typically, they are like in India, they're in other countries, and they are finding people through lists of bankruptcies, arrests, those kind of, they're looking for people down on their luck. They're trying to find people and they're telling them, hey, I'm going to coach you and so they send them the intake, they run them through a fake intake, they tell them everything to say. And the way they get them to do it without any money exchanging hands is they basically say, hey, these law firms aren't going to be able to settle with a Johnson and Johnson or a 3M or Uber, whoever, if they don't have enough claimants, right? So what firms do is they buy filler claimants. This is what they're telling them, right? And so you get to help, right? And the firm knows that you're not legit, but you can never, ever admit that because ethically, then they'd have to release your case. So you just stick to the bit. At the end of it, you'll get some kind of participation amount. And they usually say 5,000, 10,000, whatever it is for participating in this case, right? And so this is how they get people on board to participate in these fraud. And they say, and by the way, we'll double it if you bring us 5 other people that are willing to do it. And then they sell to the guy who sells to the marketer that sells to the firm, right? And that's where those sort of affiliate ones, that's how they're getting so many because they're these like truly coach fraud. So the people think, well, for participating, and here's the crazy thing. We've talked to some of these claimants and they're like, oh yeah, I got paid on Boy Scouts of America. I got paid on Astroworld. I got paid somewhere. There have been ones that have snuck through, right? Which is often then fueled some of those Reddit ones, right? Like I got through, let me teach you how, pay me $50.
Here's
I'll
a
show
copy
you.
of my check.
Right. And so and this is what I would say, I think it is a extremely smart investment. Genuinely, I've been in this for 20 years. It is a smart investment. It got away from us a little bit there for a couple years, and now we are locked in. Fraud, everyone knows that no one is immune from fraud. Anyone who claims, and this is the nice thing, like our company here, we have metrics, right? If you said, hey, Kate, you could call me up anytime and you say, hey, I talked to this marketer and he says he can get me 100 depot cases a week right now, $5,000 a piece. I would say you are going to get 0 cases for whatever money you give him. That is impossible, right? Be like someone saying like, oh, hey, I just talked to this guy. He said he could read all of Don Quixote in 3 minutes. Like, it's just not a thing, right?
Right.
And so we know that those metrics don't make sense because we're seeing such a high percent of what is happening in the space. And that's where it's hard in any kind of sales environment because everyone's going to, say, oh, yeah, we're getting this or we're doing this or we can do this for that. And no one really knows what the truth is. So the nice thing about our company is that we are just a straight flat fee, whether the firm hires us or the marketer hires us. Our genuine goal, right, is to combat the fraud, get budgets to the people that are doing cases, getting leads the right way, right? And there are a lot of great marketers out there getting leads the right way. Get the budgets to those people so the right plaintiffs are on the litigations. So it isn't, this whole thing, defense makes the whole case about fraud. It's happening all the time. And it's understandable because there's been so much of it in recent cases. So let's eliminate that noise, right? Focus on the real injured people, get the money to the real injured people, and get the return, on the investments these firms are putting in, whether they're just straight investing like referral. Personally, I love that. If I was an attorney, I had a firm, I'd be a referral firm all day. Like, as long as you are being wise, you go into it knowing that you could hand over your money and get nothing for it, right? That you are taking action to make sure that your investment's protected. And any legitimate marketer is going to make you some kind of assurance that, hey, we will do a return, or hey, yes. I don't think there's any marketers in space right now that don't know about our company that are selling mass torts. So a lot of firms say, hey, I won't buy from you unless they run through smart reviews so that we know that they're legitimate. Or if you don't want to use us, totally fine. Then you need to be doing something internally, right? within that return window
Right.
space, so you're
To
protecting your
verify the
investment.
case. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, my takeaway is three things. We're out of time. We gotta summarize and wrap up. So
Sorry, I've enjoyed
my
this.
yeah, me too. My takeaway is three things. Number one, you have to understand what is an opportunity. So there is not every mass tort that's out there is an opportunity, but there's
Absolutely.
also the ability to be early to something. And but you need to really understand the tort marketplace to understand if it's an opportunity. So if that's not what you do for a living, probably not a good place for you to be putting your money. Probably do it with something that's a more proven case that you can that more than likely get a payout on if you do get valid clients through that, right? So that's number one. Number two, make sure that you vet the marketing company that you're working with, because there are marketing companies that can be taking advantage of this fraud situation, right? Like they could be fraudulent themselves. And that's something that's fairly easy to vet. I mean, Kate made herself available. You just reach out to her and say,
Yeah.
hey, is this marketing
Ask me,
company
I'll tell you
legit?
if they're good or not.
Or more, even better, work with a CPA like me, where we introduce you to the relationship that we've already vetted for you, right? So that's the second piece. The third piece is, even if you're working with the best marketing company out there, the best litigation firm on the back end, if you haven't done your due diligence on these cases and you have a 14-day window, I think you missed that piece
Mm.
of it, right? Like most of these marketers give you 14 days to reject a case. You have that 14-day window. Take advantage of that time and make sure that that case is vetted. So whether you're having the marketing agency use smart reviews or you're engaging with them directly, $200 is a drop in the bucket if that's all it takes to vet every single one of these leads, because you'll be able to reject the ones that are not valid or don't meet the criteria for you to keep them, and then they have to produce more cases for you, right? Like so um it's not just protecting your investment. It's almost like accelerating the return on your investment by making sure that you have every single lead is a valid case. So hopefully they'll end up getting signed. They'll end up being, represented by your litigation firm and with your name on the engagement. Kate, this was a great conversation. I wrap up every interview with two things. Number one, what's one parting piece of advice or wisdom you want to share with our listeners? Number two, how can they find out more about you, get in touch with you, take a next step if they really were intrigued by our conversation?
Yeah, so you did a great job of saying it, but I want to say one, don't be afraid to invest in mass torts. I really think that we're back in a space where, as long as you are educated on it, right, and you're using resources like your company, like my company, that you can do very well in it. And it's important to that space and to protecting the claimants that deserve, right, their day in court, that we don't scare people out of this industry, right? And so don't be afraid to invest in there. And then getting in touch with us, smartreviewsllc.com is our website. Also, we're on LinkedIn under Smart Reviews, and then myself, Catherine Hoffman, on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out there. And genuinely, I'm not kidding. If you're a referral firm looking to invest, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can send a message to the website. I'm happy to tell you what marketers are doing well and which torts. I don't have a dog in the fight other than trying to help protect the space. So I'm always here if, anyone has questions.
That's awesome. Folks, check out smartreviewsllc.com. And we're here every single Thursday. So make sure to tune in next week with our next amazing guest interview. Or maybe you'll be in for a treat with a solo podcast episode of mine. I have no idea what the calendar has in store, but we are doing some of those. So, just one last time, if you want to talk to somebody on my team about being really, really smart with taxes, everybody says, "Oh, I have a tax guy." Guess what? We don't care. We'll work with your tax guy, right? Like, 99% of the CPAs out there are not giving you advice to get your tax bill down to, reducing it by 80%. And that's because that's not what you hire them for. You hire them for compliance. You don't hire them for strategy and advice. And this is a completely different type of engagement. So if you want to find out more about that, again, you got to be making more than $300,000 or paying more than 50,000 in taxes for it to be relevant. But we start with a tax assessment. It's 2,500 bucks. we guarantee $10,000 in savings identified, or we give you your money back. So if you want to find out more about that, go to dreambuilderfinancial.com/tax call, dreambuilderfinancial.com/tax call. You do not have to invest in mass torts as part of your strategies. We have a whole book of them. So we're really excited to have conversations with the right people when it comes to reducing or eliminating your tax. And with that, we'll close this episode out. Thank you very much for being here. We'll see you next Thursday. Take care. Bye for now.